Hello everybody, Dr. Rebecca Borup here with another video, this time on the reproductive system. We'll begin with a brief overview of reproductive anatomy. If you are comfortable with your anatomy, then you can go ahead and skip over this part. Let's start with the male anatomy. First, I want to introduce parts of the anatomy that are not part of the reproductive system but are still located in the abdominal cavity, in the abdominal pelvic cavity. We of course can see here then that the reproductive system is closely associated with the colon as well as the bladder and the renal system. But part of the male reproductive system then, or so to highlight the male reproductive system, actually let me switch over here, we'll use this one right here, and I think I better change the size of my highlighter, because we don't quite need it ginormous here. We'll begin with the gonads for the male reproductive system, which are the testes. These are housed, of course, in the scrotum. And as we look at the structure right above the testes, let me switch colors really quickly so you can kind of see that. We have the epididymis, head of the epididymis, the vas deferens, also called Ductus Deferens, which, if you'll follow my pen traveling up in blue, we have a number of accessory structures, including the seminal vesicles shown here, and the prostate shown here. Okay, the Cowper's gland, okay, also called the bulbourethral gland, right there. The ureter, as you're going to notice, is part of the renal system, so right here. But it also is going to be, we're going to share the same duct, essentially, for the ejaculation of sperm. Okay, so there's the ureter there, or the urethral opening. So, sorry, the urethra. If we take a look at the penis, then we have the glands of the penis. That's going to be the area right here at the beginning. This is the most sensitive area in terms of male sexual stimulation. And we have the corpus cavernosa, which is going to be right here. That didn't show up very good, but well, we'll just do lots of colors on top of it. There we go. And that is a richly supplied with capillaries and is going to be the tissue, one of the two tissues that will be involved in the erection reflex, the other portion of this. So that's the corpus cavernosa. And then we have this region down here underneath as well, also filled with capillaries. And that's going to also be involved in the erection reflex, and that's the corpus spongiosum. And I think that about covers it for the male reproductive system. We'll talk about some of these processes as we move onward. Just be aware that the ejaculatory duct we discussed is going to essentially merge with the urethra for ejaculation of sperm and semen, the secretions that are produced by the accessory glands, the seminal vesicles, prostate gland, Cowper's gland, and so forth. Take a closer look at the testes. What we actually see if we actually look inside them, take a cross section of them, is we're going to see these structures right here, which are called the semi-nephrous tubules, and you can see how convoluted they are as they wrap around back and forth. Lots of surface area, lots and lots of surface area, and it's going to be this region that will be involved in the production of sperm, the growth and the development of sperm. And then you'll notice that each of these are going to join into these ducts here, which will ultimately merge, carry the developing sperm up into the epididymis. And so you've got the head of the epididymis, which is this structure right here, and that head of the epididymis is going to collect and the sperm as it develops. And then it's going to join the tail of the epididymis. It takes a turn here. And then we're going to go up into our Ductus Deferens, which is another word for the vas deferens. And then the vas deferens are then going to travel up to the accessory structures, the seminiferal tube, the accessory structures such as the prostate, seminal vesicles, Cowper's gland, and so on. The sperm is then going to be joined with secretions along the way to make semen. Now, a lot of the rest of this, you can take a look at this. You can see that we've got other anatomical structures being identified, but since this is a physiology course, I'm going to be focusing primarily on those structures that we will be talking about in terms of function. So let's take a look at the female anatomy. Once again, we're in the pelvic region here, and we have some structures that are closely positioned, surrounding the reproductive structures. Of course, we've got our colon here, as is common with, same with the males, and then we've also got our bladder right here. But I do want you to notice that the urethra right here is a separate duct or tubule from the vaginal opening. They do not actually, so the secretions from the vagina versus the urine are going to come out two separate regions of the female's body. So looking at the reproductive organs, then we have, of course, our ovaries. Those are going to be our gonads, and you can see that this one you can only see one of them, but there are two, right and a left. The fallopian tubes, as shown here, and these fallopian tubes then merge with the uterus, shown here. At the base of the uterus, right here, we have our cervix. That's the wrong color. Let's try black. That'll show up. Right here, we've got our cervix there. Then we've got the vaginal cavity here, and the opening of the vagina, as shown right there. Okay. The clitoris is actually much larger than most people think, and so we've got portions of the clitoris here, and we're going to have a glans, the clitoris analogous to the penis, and some of the structures are going to be similar, but of course shaped differently in the female. We have the labia, which we'll take a look at the next slide here. Shows us the external genitalia, including the glands of the clitoris, which would be located right up here. Okay. The clitoris itself, though, is actually much larger. Again, as I mentioned, there's actually structures that are going to go back in here. We'll take a closer look at that in a little bit. The labia, we have the labia. Let me highlight the ones that I want you to make sure you know. So the labia minus are the smaller inner labia, these portions right here. Okay. And where's my label here? Oh, there it is. And the label for the labia majus, which of course is these larger structures here and here. Okay. Notice my urethral opening. Let's do right here. That's actually going to be right here. This little structure here that I'm coloring in red. Oops. Nope, I got it wrong. It's right here. What I colored in red is actually not the urethral opening. Let's erase that. That's actually part of the clitoris. Okay, and then clitoral structure, as I mentioned, is actually larger, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the arousal reflex in females. Here is a cross-section of the ovary, and actually this one is actually meant more to show the development of the follicle over time, so it's not exactly correct in terms of anatomy, but you can see that we do have a rich blood supply. We've got our blood vessels shown here that supply the ovary with blood. Okay, and that's going to be important because that's going to be carrying hormones such as estrogen and progesterone to their destinations. Inside this ovary, we will have a tremendous number of the primary follicles. This one is only really showing one or two. We'll have growing follicles, and we're going to have mature follicles, and we'll walk through the process of this development. We usually will have a corpus luteum for a short time. It will begin to regress into what's known as the Corpus Albicans, and we'll discuss that in more detail as well.